The reigning batting champ is back on the move as Luiz Arraez has officially been traded from the Miami Marlins to the San Diego Padres. The Marlins are sitting at an abysmal 9-24 record, not anywhere close to contending, and this is their first move to go ahead and try and rebuild some stock and build up their prospect farm system in their first year outside of Kim Ng. The Padres, on the other hand, are 4.5 games back of the Dodgers and a game and a half back of the wild card, with a couple teams like the Nationals and the Mets maybe not being as realistic as contenders as expected. The Padres are looking to bolster their lineup and really go all in with one of the best average hitters in baseball. AJ Preller is back doing interesting trades after trading away Juan Soto to the Yankees and getting Dillon Head from the White Sox. He makes another win-now move to go and try and propel the Padres back to the postseason. In return, the Marlins get 3 prospects that could make a big impact on their organization's future and a relief pitcher who could also help them in the short term and maybe even be flipped at the deadline because relievers are always in demand when August 31st rolls around. In this video, we'll dive into this Luiz Arraez trade, see exactly what the Padres are getting in Arraez, what the Marlins are getting in their 3 prospects, and give overall gut reaction trade grades to both sides of this deal. Before we begin, it would really mean a lot if you would subscribe to the channel. It helps me say that you like the content I make and these trade reviews that I love to do, and will also get you more awesome content not only from me but from awesome baseball creators out there as well. Without further ado, let's dive into this Luiz Arraez deal that sends him over to the San Diego Padres. I've already made a video detailing the trades that sent Arraez from the Twins to the Marlins in exchange for Pablo Lopez. You can check that out in the description below after this video. So I'm not going to talk a ton about what he's done in the past, but more focus on what he's done so far in 2024 since that video came out this offseason. Arraez dominated with the Twins with a batting average of .316 in 2022, leading the American League, an All-Star Game appearance, a top 15 MVP finish, Silver Slugger, and a top 6 Rookie of the Year placement as well. Arraez's only full season with the Marlins was solid. A .354 batting average led the major leagues, but because he swings at a lot of pitches no matter where they are, he didn't have a super high walk rate. That's why his OBP was below 400. Not a power hitter, 10 home runs is about where you'd expect him to end up, and that 4.5 BWAR is mostly offensive. He does have some defensive limitations. With that being said, his 2023 was definitely very, very solid. 2024 has been very much more pedestrian for Arraez, and there's some big red flags that come with his game right now. After having a nearly 5 WAR season last year, Arraez has just barely accumulated 0.1 WAR this season. He's hitting under 300, he's still not walking a ton, and things just aren't coming together as well as many people would have hoped for a guy who has as many defensive limitations as Arraez does. As a hit-first player with very minimal defensive value at first base or at second base, it's a little bit concerning to see Arraez do so poorly. Granted, he's a league average hitter by OPS plus 105 is 5% above league average, but for first base, it's really not exciting. And for really bad second base defense, that's not going to cut it. Arraez needs to go ahead and get a hold on his offensive game, and it could just be early season struggles or signs of bigger things to come. But one thing's for sure, and that's Arraez needs to do a little bit of a better job of getting his offensive production under control in order to make sure he has the potential to be an impact back for the San Diego Padres going forward in a potential playoff push. The first player the Marlins get in this deal is 2023 first-round pick Dillon Head, who the Padres took 25th overall out of Homeward Floresmoor High School in Illinois. He was committed to Clemson and was one of the most exciting prep prospects in the 2023 class, and the Padres signed him for $2.8 million. He showed his great eye in rookie ball after he walked 11 times across 62 plate appearances and only struck out 9 times over those 14 games in the ACL before finally getting the call up to Single A before his 19th birthday. His most exciting trait is his run speed, which can both steal bases and allow him to patrol center field effectively. During his high school senior year, he only struck out 5 times in 118 plate appearances and stole 31 straight bags while hitting almost 500. He has that ability to be a great player. A 6'3", 60-yard dash ahead of the draft is what the Padres had on their timer, and it just shows that he could really go and be a havoc wrecker on the base pass. Although he's only stolen 3 bases this year, most of that can be attributed to the fact that he just hasn't been on base a lot. A .317 on base percentage this year is relatively low. His OPS is at .683. It's nothing to be super excited about. Dillon Head is only 19, so very young, and so that's something we can definitely see and look on as he's very young for Single A right now, but he has a very big hit tool risk. He is a kind of player that you're going to wonder if he can hit for average, and that is going to limit his game. That's a big reason why he fell so far in the 23 draft. Not that 25 is quote-unquote far, but he was someone that people were very excited about heading into that draft, and part of the reason why he didn't get picked higher is because there is a decent chance that he just cannot keep up and hit for average at the major league level. If he can, though, he will be electric. He already has 2 doubles on the season and under 100 at-bats. He's the kind of guy who will be a game changer on the base pass, and when he does get the ball in play, he can beat out an infield single, and he can provide really good defense in center field. You couple that defensive range with a slightly above average arm, and you have the recipe for a good center fielder. The issue is whether he's going to be hitting at the top of the lineup as a stolen base threat who can go ahead and get your 2, 3, and 4 hole hitters ready to drive in runs, or if he's the bottom of the lineup kind of guy who you have out there to play defense really well in center field. Time will tell, and that is now the Marlins' problem to try and figure out. Is Dillon Head someone who's going to be a good hitter in the major leagues? Because he has the potential to do that. But if he can't crack into the issues in his swing, he may end up being solely a defensive first center fielder or a guy who you end up relying on solely as a defensive replacement off the bench. Regardless, he has the ability to hit. He's shown it throughout his high school career, and it's something that scouts think with a couple adjustments and a little bit more contact skills, he'll have that ability. If the Marlins can tap into that, which I'm assuming they think they can because he is the premier piece of this deal, then they'll have themselves a good center fielder for the future. The Marlins dip back into the Padres' top 10 according to MLB Pipeline and gets their other left-handed hitting outfielder in Jakob Marsee, their 2022 6th-round pick, 180th overall out of Central Michigan. Marsee is known to walk a ton, and I've already talked about Dillon Head's eye, but Marsee is like Head on steroids, which, pause now that I think about it, but regardless, he walks a lot and has one of the best eyes in all the minor leagues. At Central Michigan, he had a 33-47 strikeout to walk ratio, which meant he walked 14 more times than he struck out at Central Michigan his junior year before he got drafted, and he's continued that trend in the minor leagues. In 2023, he led all of San Diego minor leaguers with 98 walks, and he was the only qualified hitter to go ahead and have more walks than strikeouts in their system. Marsee went on to dominate the Arizona Fall League, winning the MVP award last season, slashing .391, .509, .707, which is just insane against some of baseball's brightest stars. He actually has a similar but also very different game to someone like Luiz Arraez. Arraez swings a ton at a bunch of pitches, but he makes contact, and that's part of his game, while Marsee does the opposite. He doesn't chase at all, and he is selective about what he takes and makes sure the pitchers have to throw him strikes, or else he will gladly take the free pass. They both have a similar game when it comes to getting contact, though. Both of them don't hit for a ton of power, don't have a ton of pop, and rely more on their ability to make good contact when they do swing than they do on getting home runs or 3-true outcomes. Some evaluators look at this approach from Marsee and wonder if he can hit at the major league level because he is so selective and likes to have pitchers throw strikes that they have to go and throw, whereas the major league level, you have pitchers who can locate pitch as well. At AA, those results are kind of starting to show. A 179 batting average has led to only a 333 on base and a slugging of 321, which is really far below league average and something that is a little bit concerning for someone who is as old as Marsee. Granted, 22 isn't like crazy old, and I don't want to put that out there in people's mind, but he was someone who could be a fast riser out of the draft in 2022 coming out of Central Michigan, and it seems like that hasn't really been the case for him. His cautious approach has been a little bit of a hindrance to his game, and he really needs to go and start being a little more aggressive and making more contact with the ball if he really wants to make an impact at the major league level. Defensively, some people think he can stick in center because he does have above average range, but with a weaker arm, a slide over to the corner might be a little bit more realistic for him when he makes the major leagues should he end up doing that, and his running speed should allow him to steal 10 to 15 bags a year. That's a solid all-around player, and if he wants to succeed, he really needs to go ahead and be a little more aggressive at the pitches he does swing at, make his OBP field more by getting on base than taking pitches, because as he goes up levels, it's going to be harder and harder to draw walks. If he can do that, he will be an effective player at the major league level, but he just has to go ahead and refine that a little bit more to be effective. He could be another guy you could see platooned as well, as he is a lefty, so we'll see exactly what the Marlins want to do with him, but he's a very interesting piece for them to deploy. The final prospect the Marlins get in this deal is another lefty from the 2022 draft class, and Nathan Martorella, their 5th-round pick, 150th overall. He's a first baseman who came from Cal, who looked to be a guy who could hit for average, but also hit for some power. His final season with the Golden Bears, he hit a .333 batting average with 11 home runs and struck out and walked about at a 1-to-1 ratio. He made the jump all the way up to AA in his first full season and put together respectable numbers, posting a 123 WRC plus across high A and AA last season, and ended up in the Arizona Fall League along with Jakob Marsee and put up decent numbers there as well. Somewhat similar to Arraez, Martorella is a very interesting first base type mold. He's not a guy who can hit for a ton of power. Granted, he could hit for maybe 10, 15 in a season, but he's a guy who is a resilient player who wants to be in the lineup every day. Instead of going and hitting for power or ending up in a 3 true outcomes kind of situation, he likes to work counts, and he does a really good job against pitchers from both sides, showing the need that he doesn't need to be platooned. He likes to kind of tap into that power when he can, and although he does have a little bit of a high ground ball rate, if he can go ahead and elevate that a little bit more, he will get that OBP up and could potentially hit 15, 20 home runs in a season. That's a solid repertoire for someone who has a decent amount of potential, and if Martorella can tap into that, there'll be a lot of potential for him to be very good. He is not a plus defender at first base by any means. He'll be league average at best, and although the Padres have tried him in left field and they did so in the Arizona Fall League as well, it looks like he's most likely going to sit at first base simply because he does not have the speed to stick out in a corner outfield. He will be very defensively limited, but at the end of the day, sometimes you take that for a guy who can get on base. We're talking about Luiz Arraez in that same vein, and that's exactly what you get with him. The final player the Marlins get back in the steal is also a minor leaguer, but isn't considered a prospect because he signed from the international posting system, and that's Woo-Suk Go, who is the brother-in-law of grandson of the win, Jung-Hoo Lee, the Giants outfielder. The Korean signed with the Padres this offseason for a 2-year, $4.5 million contract, and instead of being assigned to the major leagues, was sent to AA to go ahead and try and refine his game a little bit more. He's been a very reliable player in the KBO with the LG Twins and became their closer in 2019 after just 2 seasons with the team. During his time pitching in Korea, he had a .318 ERA, 400 strikeouts, and 139 saves, and that was a big reason why he was a hot commodity coming into the relief market in the 2023 offseason. He also has a lot of international experience with Korea, playing in both the Olympic Games and in the 2022 Asian Games. He's had okay success so far in AA for the San Antonio Missions, a 0-2 record, .438 ERA across 12 1/3 innings pitched. He struck out 15 guys, so it seems like his command is there as well with only 4 walks, but he's letting guys get on base a little bit too much, a 1.46 whip, and his save opportunities aren't going well. He's 1 for 3 in save opportunities, so it seems like that clutch gene could come in a little bit better for him. But again, it's only been 10 games. There's still a lot of time for him to grow. To grade this deal, I have to give the Padres a grade of a C-. Arraez is a very good player, and although he has started the year cold, there's definitely potential for him to go ahead and establish himself as a great player. My one concern comes with AJ Preller trading away Juan Soto. If you're going to go all in, you don't trade away Juan Soto. If you try to win a championship, you don't trade away Juan Soto. Yes, Dylan Cease is great. Yes, Luiz Arraez can be a very good hitter at the top of your lineup, but the moves that he makes just doesn't make sense. If I'm him, I'm looking to retool my roster. I'm looking to find ways to go ahead and maximize the potential I have with young players like a Jackson Merrill to be a better team. I think they also gave up a little bit too much as well. Dillon Head has some really good potential, and although he hasn't hit into his hit tool yet, he's only been in the minor leagues a year. Jakob Marsee also has some good potential, and with a little more refinement at AA, a couple more seasons in the minors, and he could be a very good piece as well. Nathan Martorella could also be a solid piece. He hasn't put it all together as well, but sometimes that's what you want. You want guys who can go ahead and with a couple more tweaks make a big impact, and I think a couple of these guys are just a few tweaks away. They can make a big step forward in their game, and I think the Marlins believe they can do that with all 3 of these guys. Maximize their potential, and I wouldn't be shocked to see a couple of them go do that, even though the Marlins aren't necessarily the best at development. Woo-Suk Go is another interesting piece as well. He's not someone who's going to make an impact at the major league level now, but he's also someone who could be a very interesting piece going forward. He's 25, pitched very well in Korea, and although it's not an immediate transition over, we've seen Jung-Hoo Lee do decently well, and if he can continue to build up on his success in the minor leagues and in Korea, he could be a very interesting middle or late relief kind of guy. For the Marlins, I'll give this trade an A-. I think their perfect time to trade him would have been this offseason. I think they would have gotten a little bit more because Arraez had a little bit of a slow start, which is why this isn't an A or an A+, but I really like the return they got here. I spent a little bit of time highlighting all the negatives of the people that they got back simply because I think that's a fair way to evaluate it, but I think based on what you have with Arraez, where you are right now as the Marlins without even 10 wins on the board, you might as well go ahead and get some pieces that you think can hit. Losing Arraez isn't going to be a big change. You can stick someone like Josh Bell at first base, and now you're set. Second base can be done by someone like Jonah Bride, who's torn up the minor league so far in AAA. you have potential to go ahead and fill some spots in and get some young players some at-bats, all while getting rid of someone who isn't really producing for your team and can provide some positive value in the trade market. I think they did exactly that, and as long as one of these guys hits, which is never a guarantee, I think Marlins fans should be happy. I think Woo-Suk Go has the potential to be up in the major leagues sooner rather than later, especially if he can go ahead and get a couple more innings under his belt of good baseball. And if one of these guys can go ahead and tap into their hit tool a little bit better, or if Martorella can be a little bit more of a well-rounded hitter and make a jump up in AAA, I think Marlins fans will be very happy with this return. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed this trade review. There'll be 2 videos here on the screen. Go ahead and click one of those, or the baseball in the middle, and the link in the description to subscribe to the channel or watch any of the videos I've mentioned in this video. Thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.